Hi everyone, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about reflexes, spinal reflexes. And so let's review first just basic reflex arc components. So you'll have a sensory receptor that detects your stimulus. This might be pain, pressure, touch. It might be a proprioceptor detecting joint position, body movement, something that's detecting a stimulus from your environment. That receptor will carry its information into the spinal cord, always going, and sensory information goes in through the dorsal root. You can see the cell body and the dorsal root ganglion right here. Information continues all the way into the dorsal gray horn. And then here you see an interneuron. There's your integrating center where summation will occur. And then you have your motor neuron right here in red that leaves through the ventral horn and the ventral root. Motor information will always go out through the ventral root. And you can see it coming along here through the efferent pathway and synapsing on some kind of effector. And generally with these somatic reflexes, we'll be talking about skeletal muscles. So the stretch reflex will cause contraction of a muscle due to stretching of the muscle. It's monosynaptic, meaning one synapse, only two neurons will be involved there. It's ipsilateral, which means that the stimulus comes in on one side of the spinal cord and the motor output will go out through the same side. So stretching of a muscle will activate those muscle spindles. Sensory neuron goes into the spinal cord through the dorsal root, and then the motor neuron will come out through the ventral root and cause a muscle contraction. And so an example of this is the knee jerk test that they do if you go to a physician's office and they're testing your reflexes, they'll test that patellar tendon, and just checking to make sure that the sensory and motor connections between your muscle and the spinal cord are intact. And depending on how vigorously you respond, that indicates how excitable your spinal cord is. And so what this looks like, here we have a leg. Up here you have your quadriceps muscles. Right here there's the tendon. Here's your patellar tendon that is connected to that quadriceps muscle right there. And then you can see the antagonistic muscles on the other side, your hamstrings. So when you have when somebody taps on that tendon, the tendon will stretch, and that is sensed by this muscle spindle right here. So it's a type of proprioceptor. That sensory information is carried along, goes into the spinal cord through the dorsal root, and you have some information to your brain just telling you what's going on, so you're consciously aware of it, but your brain is not going to contribute to what is actually going to be done, the outcome. You see an interneuron right here, but the reason this is classified as a monosynaptic reflex is because you only see one synapse right here. So you see that sensory neuron synapses directly on your motor neuron, again leaving through the ventral side, and this neuron is going to excite these muscles. And so as you contract the quadriceps, you get extension of the knee, and so as your foot comes out this way, you would see relief in that stretched tendon. It would not be stretched as much. You don't want your muscles to lock up and have no results, so you also have this motor neuron. Again, going out through the ventral root. It's dotted because it is inhibitory, and it is going to cause your antagonistic muscles to relax. And so you don't just have muscles freezing up. So your agonist muscles will contract and antagonistic muscles will relax. So you will see, in this case, you'll see extension of the knee. The tendon reflex, classified as polysynaptic, this helps to control muscle tension by causing muscle relaxation. So we saw muscle contraction before. Here we're going to see muscle relaxation when tension gets too big. The sensory receptors that you're going to see here mainly are Golgi tendon organs. And when you see increased tension applied to that tendon, the nerve impulse is going to cause relaxation of those muscles. So here's what that looks like. Again, we see the leg, here's your quadriceps, and here are your hamstrings. Increased tension detected by probably your Golgi tendon organ. In your tendon right here, sensory information carried in through the dorsal root comes into the spinal cord, again on the dorsal side. And then you see these interneurons right here. Here's where summation occurs. And you have, again, two motor neurons. Again, the solid line, both of these coming out through the ventral root. Solid line is going to cause your hamstrings to contract, and that is going to cause you to flex your knee. And so you see this arrow down here. The heel is going to be brought back. And this inhibitory motor neuron right here is going to inhibit your quadriceps. And so if you have too much tension in this tendon right here, you want to relax these muscles. And so you see an inhibitory motor neuron on the quadriceps to relax that muscle, to relieve the tension on that tendon. And you're going to stimulate the antagonist to contract. And again, in these examples, the effectors are going to be the muscles. The flexor or withdrawal reflex is also a polysynaptic reflex. It's also ipsilateral, so it is going to come in and go out on the same side of the spinal cord. This is generally initiated by painful stimuli. So if you step on a tack or something like that, that's going to activate these motor neurons to cause you to withdraw that leg and remove yourself from that painful stimulus. So here we see again, quadriceps are right here, hamstrings are right here, and here's your tack that you've just stepped on, and so you have sensory information that's being carried up to, carried in through the dorsal root again, into the dorsal gray horn. And here's where things get a little bit more involved. You're going to use multiple areas of the spinal cord. So you have an ascending interneuron going to a more superior area of the spinal cord and a descending interneuron going to a descending area. With all of these areas of the spinal cord, you can see there are interneurons within the gray matter right here. And in all of those interneurons are all going to synapse with a motor neuron. So you see they're all synapsing on these red motor neurons. All of the motor neurons are going to head back out through the ventral root. So that's something that is common among everything. Motor information always leaves through the ventral side. You can see all of these motor neurons are going to cause the hamstrings to contract, causing you to flex your leg at the knee. The crossed extensor reflex is often seen in conjunction with the flexor reflex because if you are flexing a leg, you need to make sure that the other leg is extended so you have something to stand on and you don't fall over when you pick your leg up. This is a polysynaptic reflex. It is a contralateral reflex, which means that it involves the other side of the body. So we're going to see crossing over in the spinal cord. We're going to see moving to the other side. It is going to cause contraction of the muscles that extend the joints in the opposite side. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So this is the same stuff we saw in the previous example. With the flexor reflex, you step on a tack, and you're going to want to bring that leg back. Sensory information goes in through the dorsal side and into the dorsal gray. On the left side of this picture, this is all the stuff that we saw with the flexor reflex. So you see interneurons, we're going to a more superior and a more inferior section of the spinal cord. And so you have interneurons here. You also see, this is what's new, crossing over across the gray commissure to the other side. So these are going to be the neurons that are going to ultimately be responsible for that crossed extensor. And here we see lots of motor neurons. Again, the left side of the picture is the same stuff. So you have motor neurons going out each side of the ventral root, causing your hamstrings to contract, and you withdraw, you flex that leg. Now on the other leg, you are going to cause extension. So notice that as all of these motor neurons are leaving through the ventral root, they're all going to excite your quadriceps muscles, causing extension of the leg at the knee. And so you're going to extend the left leg over here as you withdraw or flex the right leg over here. And so this crossed extensor just makes sure that it's the left leg that gets extended instead of trying to extend while you're also flexing your right leg. The plantar reflex, when you have a downward motion on the sole of your foot with your finger, The toes should flex in response to that motion. You try to get away. Or at least I think that way. I'm very ticklish. Infants will exhibit the Babinski sign, though. Their toes fan out, but that reflex will eventually go away, and the toes will eventually flex in response to that motion.